Welcome, night traveler. Before we begin our journey into the quiet world of lighthouses, if you find yourself returning to this channel night after night, seeking the gentle embrace of history as you drift towards sleep, consider subscribing. Let this become your sanctuary, a place you can always return to when the world feels too loud, too fast, too much. Now, take a deep breath. You're here, you're safe, and tonight we're going to explore something beautiful and timeless. We're going to discover the history of lighthouses, those solitary sentinels standing at the edge of the world, keeping watch through countless nights just like this one. There's something profoundly peaceful about lighthouses, isn't there? The steady rotation of light, the rhythm of waves against ancient stones, the patience of structures built to endure. You don't need to remember any of this. You don't need to stay awake. In fact, I hope you don't. Just let these words wash over you like gentle waves. And if you drift away before we reach the end, that's perfect. That's exactly what should happen. Let's begin. Long before electricity, before sophisticated engineering, before nations and empires as we know them, there was fire, and there was darkness, and there was the sea. Imagine, if you will, a time so distant that it feels like a dream. The Mediterranean world, over 2,000 years ago. The sun setting over waters that have witnessed the entire span of human civilization. And on the rocky shores, on the cliff tops and harbor edges, people began to do something that would continue for millennia. They lit fires, simple fires, nothing grand at first. Just flames built on high points, tended through the long night by those who understood that darkness and water together could swallow ships, could swallow lives, could swallow hope itself. These weren't lighthouses yet, not really. They were just lights. Kindness made visible, hope made tangible. The earliest records we have are fragmentary, like trying to see by candlelight through fog. Homer, the ancient poet whose words have echoed across 3,000 years, mentioned beacon fires in the Iliad. The Greeks knew, the Phoenicians knew, every seafaring people knew that fire on a headland meant safety, meant home, meant you might live to see another sunrise. But let's slow down. Let's not rush through millennia as though they were moments. Time moved differently then. A lighthouse keeper in ancient times would have experienced the passage of hours in a way we've almost forgotten. No clocks ticking away anxiety, no notifications demanding attention. Just the slow arc of stars across the sky, the gradual shift from dusk to deep night to the first pale promise of dawn. The first true lighthouse, or at least the first one grand enough that history remembered its name, was the Pharos of Alexandria. Built around 280 BCE on a small island in Alexandria's harbor, during the reign of Ptolemy II. 300 feet tall, or perhaps more. The ancient accounts vary, as ancient accounts so often do. Some said it was 400 feet. Some said it reached toward the heavens themselves. Imagine the labor. The years of construction. Massive blocks of light-colored stone, probably limestone, quarried and transported and lifted, piece by piece, course by course, year by year. The workers who built it are nameless now, lost to time, but they lived and breathed and felt the Mediterranean sun on their shoulders as they worked. They had families, worries, small joys. They were as real as you are now, lying here in the darkness, listening. The Pharaoh stood for over 1,000 years. Think about that. 1,000 years. It was ancient when it finally fell. Earthquakes, probably in the 14th century. The same relentless forces that shaped the coastline slowly bringing down even the mightiest works of human hands. But for 1,000 years, it stood. For 1,000 years, its light, probably an open fire at first, later perhaps polished bronze mirrors reflecting flames, guided ships safely home. 1,000 years of keepers, generation after generation, climbing the same spiral staircase, tending the same eternal flame, watching the same stars wheel overhead. The routine of it, the sacred monotony, every night the same duty, every night the same purpose. Can you feel yourself relaxing into that rhythm? The repetition of it. There's something deeply soothing about tasks that dawn at change, about duties that were performed the same way night after night, year after year, century after century. The Romans, practical as always, built lighthouses throughout their empire. They understood infrastructure. They understood that safe harbors meant trade, meant prosperity, meant the smooth functioning of an empire that stretched from Britain to North Africa, from Spain to Syria. The Tower of Hercules, built by the Romans in the 1st century CE, still stands today in northwestern Spain. Still functions. Still guides ships, though now with electric light instead of fire. Nearly 2,000 years old. Think about that as you lie here. 2,000 years of waves breaking against its foundation. 2,000 years of storms. 2,000 years of darkness, met with light. The Romans built it with large blocks of stone, layer upon layer, solid and strong. They built it to last, and it has lasted, beyond empire, beyond the civilization that created it, beyond languages and religions and entire ways of life. The lighthouse remains. There was a keeper there once, in the 2nd century perhaps, or the 3rd. We don't know his name, we don't know if he was old, or young, patient or restless, content or longing for something else. But we know he climbed the stairs each evening as the sun sank into the Atlantic. We know he lit the fire. We know he kept watch through the dark hours, as countless keepers would do after him, as keepers do still, though now they tend computers and automated systems instead of flames. The task is the same. The purpose is the same. Keep the light burning. Guide the lost home. In ancient China, too, coastal peoples built towers and lit fires to guide fishermen and merchants. In India, in Southeast Asia, wherever humans met the sea, they understood the need for light in darkness. It's one of our oldest instincts, isn't it? To light a fire against the night, to create a point of reference in the vast uncertainty. As the Roman Empire faded, as the ancient world gave way to medieval times, the lighthouse tradition continued, though sometimes it flickered like a guttering candle. Monasteries, those other keepers of light in dark times, often maintained coastal beacons. Monks who had devoted their lives to prayer and contemplation would tend the lights as an act of charity, of mercy. What more Christian act, they must have reasoned, than to save lives? The Hook Lighthouse in Ireland, built in the 13th century by monks, still operates today. 800 years of the same fundamental act performed over and over. Light the flame, keep watch, maintain hope. The medieval keepers lived lives of profound isolation. Communication was slow, travel was difficult. A lighthouse keeper might go weeks without seeing another soul, alone with the wind and waves and wheeling seabirds. The rhythm of their days was dictated by the sun, the tide, the weather. Up before dawn to extinguish the night's fire. Daytime for maintenance, for hauling fuel, for the endless small repairs that any structure battered by salt and storm requires. Then evening, and the lighting of the flame again, and the long watch through darkness. Did they find it peaceful, those solitary keepers, or lonely beyond bearing? Perhaps both. Perhaps the truth of it shifted with the seasons, with their moods, with the particular quality of a given night's darkness. You can let your mind drift now if it wants to. Imagine a medieval lighthouse on a stormy night. The wind howling around the stone tower. The fire inside, warm and bright, casting dancing shadows. The keeper, anonymous across the centuries, maintaining their vigil. Waiting for dawn, as you are perhaps waiting for sleep. Time passes. The medieval period gives way to the Renaissance. The world is changing, growing, reaching outward. The age of exploration begins. Ships venture further from familiar coasts. The need for lighthouses becomes more acute, but we'll explore that in a moment. For now, rest in the ancient world a little longer. Rest with the Romans and the Greeks and the monks. Rest with the anonymous keepers of flame, those ordinary people performing an extraordinary service, night after night, year after year, century after century. The waves keep breaking, the stars keep turning, the light keeps burning. And you can simply drift, knowing that somewhere, even now, lights are keeping watch, guiding travelers home, while you journey gently toward sleep. As we move forward through time, slowly, there's no rush. We find ourselves in the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries, the age of sail, when the world seemed to shrink as ships grew bolder, venturing further, carrying more, risking more. And with greater risk came greater need. The need for reliable navigation, the need for light. The coastlines of Europe began to bristle with lighthouses. Not the massive monuments like the pharaohs. Those days of ancient grandeur were past, but practical, sturdy towers. Stone and brick, built to endure, built to serve. In France in 1584, the Cordouan lighthouse was completed at the mouth of the Gironde estuary. They called it the Versailles of the sea, and with good reason. It was magnificent, a Renaissance tower, ornate beyond mere function, with a chapel inside, with royal apartments for visiting dignitaries, 6 stories tall, gleaming white, adorned with columns and pilasters, and all the architectural refinements of the age. But beneath the ornamentation, it had the same purpose as every lighthouse before and since. It kept a flame burning through the night. It guided ships to safety. The first keeper of Cordouan, we know his name, Louis de Foix, who was also its architect, must have felt such pride when he first lit the flame in that beautiful tower. But pride, like all emotions, fades. What remained, night after night, was the duty, the responsibility, the routine. Imagine being a lighthouse keeper in this age. Your world is small. The tower, the immediate shore, the endless sea. You have no radio, no telephone, no way to call for help if something goes wrong. You are, for all practical purposes, alone with your task. Your days follow an invariable pattern. Wake with the dawn. The lighthouse keeper cannot sleep late, cannot linger in bed as the world grows light. The night fire must be extinguished, cleaned, made ready for evening. This takes time. Soot accumulates, fuel residue must be scraped away. Everything must be prepared with care because when darkness comes, there can be no fumbling, no delay. Then the daytime maintenance. Oil must be hauled up the tower stairs, and lighthouse stairs are steep, spiraling upward, seemingly endless when you're carrying heavy loads. Wicks must be trimmed, glass must be polished. The windows of the lantern room cleaned of salt spray that accumulates relentlessly, day after day, blurring the light, and then, waiting, watching the sun arc across the sky, watching it sink lower, waiting for the moment when darkness begins to claim the world, and it's time, once again, to light the beacon. In England, Trinity House, established by Henry VIII in 1514, began building and maintaining lighthouses around the coast. One by one, dangerous headlands and treacherous harbors gained their guardian lights. The Eddystone Lighthouse, built on a vicious reef off the coast of Cornwall, became legendary. The first Eddystone Lighthouse was completed in 1698 by Henry Winstanley. It was an extraordinary feat of engineering for its time, a wooden structure built on bare rock that was submerged at high tide. Winstanley was so confident in his design that he wished to be inside it during the greatest storm there ever was. He got his wish. In the great storm of 1703, one of the most violent tempests ever to hit Britain, the lighthouse was swept away. Winstanley and all the keepers perished. But here's what's beautiful, they rebuilt it. And when that one was destroyed by fire in 1755, they built another, and another after that. Human persistence against the indifferent sea, the refusal to surrender to darkness. John Smeaton's Eddystone Lighthouse, completed in 1759, stood for over a century. Smeaton pioneered new techniques, dovetailed stone blocks that locked together, hydraulic lime cement that could set underwater. The lighthouse became a model copied around the world, and in that lighthouse, keepers lived and worked in conditions that would seem unimaginable now. The Eddystone keepers were supplied by boat when weather permitted. Sometimes weeks would pass between supply runs. They lived in cramped quarters inside the tower. 3 keepers typically, working in rotation, so there was always someone awake, always someone watching. The solitude was profound. The danger was constant. In storms, the tower would shake with the impact of waves. Water would spray up and over the lantern room 70 feet above the reef. The keepers would feel the structure trembling beneath their feet and wonder, will this be the storm? Will this be the one? But mostly it wasn't drama. Mostly it was routine. The same tasks, day after day, the same vigil, night after night. Wake, tend, clean, wait, light, watch, sleep. Wake, tend, clean, wait, light, watch, sleep. The rhythm of it could drive a person mad, or it could become a kind of meditation. Perhaps both. Let yourself feel that rhythm now. The repetition, the reliability of routine. There's something deeply calming about knowing exactly what comes next, about tasks performed the same way every time. Your breathing can slow to match that ancient rhythm, in and out, like the tides, like the turning of the light. In the American colonies, lighthouses began appearing along the coast. The Boston Light, first lit in 1716, was America's first lighthouse, a simple stone tower on Little Brewster Island, guiding ships into Boston Harbor. The keeper there was paid £50 a year, a modest sum even then, and earned every penny of it through long nights and lonely days. These colonial lighthouse keepers were often retired mariners, men who had spent their lives at sea and now, in their later years, could serve the sea in a different way. They understood intimately the perils they were guarding against. They had felt the terror of being lost in darkness on unfamiliar waters. They had known the relief, the profound, almost spiritual relief, of sighting a lighthouse beam through storm and fog. The 18th century saw innovations in lighthouse technology, though innovation is perhaps too energetic a word for our purposes tonight. Let's say instead that there were gradual improvements, gentle refinements, the slow accumulation of knowledge about how to make light brighter, more visible, more reliable. Oil lamps replaced open fires in many lighthouses, whale oil primarily, which burned cleaner and brighter than wood or coal. The demand for whale oil would eventually help drive the great whaling industry of the 19th century. But that's another story, for another night perhaps. Reflectors were developed, polished metal placed behind the flames to direct more light seaward. The lights grew brighter, more effective. Ships could see them from further away, giving more time to adjust course, to avoid danger. But still, at the heart of it was a keeper. A human being, climbing stairs, tending flame, keeping watch. The technology changed, but the fundamental task remained the same. Light against darkness, safety against chaos, hope against the indifferent sea. As you lie here now, breathing slowly, you might imagine yourself as one of those keepers. Not the dramatic moments, the storms, the shipwrecks narrowly avoided, but the ordinary nights, the calm nights, the nights when the sea is gentle, and the stars are bright, and the light turns in its steady, eternal rotation. You're sitting in the lantern room, perhaps, the glass all around you, the darkness beyond, the flame or lamp bright beside you, but your eyes adjusted now, able to look out into the night. You can see the stars reflected in calm water. You can hear very faintly the sound of waves against rocks far below. You can feel the slight tremor in the tower as wind presses against it, and you can feel peace. The peace that comes from being exactly where you're supposed to be, doing exactly what you're supposed to do. The peace of duty fulfilled. The peace of solitude chosen rather than imposed. The peace of knowing that your wakefulness allows others to sleep safely. The 18th century fades into the 19th. The age of sail reaches its zenith. More ships on the oceans than ever before. More trade, more travel. More lives depending on those lights turning through the darkness. And in response, more lighthouses. Hundreds of them, thousands eventually. Wherever coast met sea, wherever danger lurked beneath the waves or jutted above them, someone built a lighthouse. Someone had to keep it. Families began to live in lighthouses. Not just the keeper, but wives and children. Imagine growing up in a lighthouse. The tower as your entire world. The sea as your backyard. The light as the rhythm that structures your life. Bedtime determined not by the clock but by sunset. Waking not to an alarm but to the first gray light of dawn. Lighthouse children would play on the rocks at low tide, exploring tide pools, collecting shells. They would learn the moods of the sea the way city childer, and learn the rhythms of streets and markets. They would fall asleep to the sound of waves, and the knowledge that their father, sometimes their mother, as women kept lights too, was awake above them, tending the flame, keeping watch. There's something beautiful about that, isn't there? The whole family participating in this essential task, this service to strangers they would never meet, ships they would never know the names of, guided safely past, night after night after night. Your breathing is slower now, perhaps, deeper. The rhythm of these words like the rhythm of waves, regular and reliable. You don't need to hold on to any of this. Just let it drift through your mind like clouds across a night sky. The age of sail continues. Ships with names like Endeavor and Beagle and Victory sail past lighthouse after lighthouse, guided safely on their journeys of discovery, of war, of trade. And in the lighthouses, keepers continue their eternal vigil. Tomorrow will continue, or you will, when you wake. But for now, let the light keep turning, while you drift toward sleep. Slowly, gently, we move into the 19th century, a time of transformation, though all transformation happens gradually when you're living through it, day by day, night by night. In 1822, a French physicist named Augustin Jean Fresnel completed work on a revolutionary lens design. But let's not focus on Fresnel himself. Brilliant though he was, he's less important to our story than what his invention may. NT for the keepers, for the lights, for the endless watch. The Fresnel lens was quite simply a way to make light travel further, much further. It used a series of concentric prisms, rings of glass carefully cut and arranged, to capture light from a lamp and focus it into a powerful beam, a beam that could be seen for 20 miles, 30 miles, even further on a clear night. Imagine being a lighthouse keeper when one of these lenses was installed in your tower. You've spent years, perhaps decades, tending oil lamps with simple reflectors. You've known the limitations of your light. You've wondered, on stormy nights, whether ships further out could see your beacon through the rain and spray. And then this arrives, this marvel of glass and brass, gleaming and precise. It's beautiful, first of all. The lens catches sunlight during the day and fractures it into rainbows. It's like having a crystal palace in your lantern room. But more than beautiful, it's powerful. The first night you light it, the first time you see how far that beam reaches, it must have felt like a kind of magic. The same lamp you've always used, the same flame, but now projecting so much further into the darkness, now capable of saving ships you never could have reached before. Of course, the lens also brings new responsibilities, new maintenance tasks. The glass must be kept immaculately clean. Any smudge, any salt spray, any dust diminishes the light. The lens rotates on a clockwork mechanism powered by weights, like a grandfather clock but larger, more complex. The weights must be wound regularly, the gears must be oiled, the rotation must be timed precisely. Different lighthouses receive different orders of Fresnel lenses. A first-order lens is the largest, over 8 feet tall, with more than 1,000 prisms. It's meant for major coastal lights, the ones that warn of the most dangerous obstacles or mark the most important harbors. Smaller orders, 2nd through 6th, are for less critical locations, harbor lights, river entrances. But regardless of size, each lens demands the same care, the same devotion, the same patient attention to detail. Let's spend time with a lighthouse keeper in the 1850s, somewhere along the coast. Let's not specify exactly where. It could be Maine or Scotland, France or Australia. The location matters less than the experience, and the experience was similar around the world. Dawn. The keeper wakes in quarters attached to the lighthouse or in a small house nearby. The night watch is over. Time to extinguish the lamp, clean everything, prepare for the next lighting. The keeper climbs the spiral stairs. These stairs. Lighthouse keepers climb them multiple times every day, and the stairs become almost invisible through familiarity. The keeper's feet know every step, every place where the stone or metal is worn smooth by decades of footsteps. The keeper could climb them in complete darkness if needed, hand trailing along the center post, counting steps unconsciously. Up into the lantern room, where the Fresnel lens still turns, still gleams in the early morning light. The keeper stops the clockwork mechanism, winds down the weights, extinguishes the lamp, then begins the cleaning. Every piece of glass in that lens must be cleaned, every panel of the lantern room windows. This takes hours. The keeper uses soft cloths, sometimes chamois leather, water and vinegar, or specialized cleaning solutions. Each prism must be individually attended to. You can't rush this. Rush, and you miss spots. Miss spots, and the light is diminished. There's a meditation in this repetitive work, hand moving in small circles, polishing glass, moving to the next panel, polishing again. The mind can wander while the hands know what to do, or the mind can rest in the work itself, in the simple satisfaction of making something clean and clear. When the glass is done, there's the brass to polish. The framework that holds the lens, the lamp itself, the gears and mechanisms. Everything must shine. This is partly pride, A keeper takes pride in a well-maintained light, but it's also practical. Corrosion is the enemy. Salt air corrodes metal relentlessly. Constant maintenance is the only defense, then down the stairs to perform other duties. Painting, always painting. The tower itself, the outbuildings, the railings and doors and shutters. Paint protects against the weather, but it also makes the lighthouse visible during the day. Many light houses have distinctive patterns: red and white stripes, black and white checks, solid colors. These help mariners identify which lighthouse they're seeing, distinguish one from another along a coast. But paint fades and peels under the assault of sun and wind and salt. So lighthouse keepers paint, and paint, and paint. It's one of those endless tasks, like the painting of the Golden Gate Bridge or the Fourth Bridge. By the time you finish, it's time to start again. Supplies must be managed. Oil for the lamp must be measured and stored carefully. Wicks must be prepared. During the day, there might be visitors, sailors coming ashore to verify their position, officials inspecting the light, occasionally tourists who have heard of the lighthouse and made the difficult journey to see it. The keeper must keep logs, detailed records of weather, of ships sighted, of any unusual events, the condition of the light, the amount of oil consumed. These logs were checked by lighthouse authorities, and a keeper whose records were sloppy or incomplete could be dismissed. But mostly, between the chores, there is waiting, watching the day pass, reading perhaps, if the keeper is literate and has books. Some keepers learn trades, carpentry, small metalworking, and would occupy their time with projects. Some kept gardens, if the soil and climate allowed. Some simply watched the sea, becoming students of its infinite variations. As afternoon fades toward evening, the keeper's attention sharpens again. Time to prepare for lighting. The lamp is checked one more time, oil level confirmed, wick trimmed precisely. Too long and it smokes, too short, and it doesn't give enough light. Everything must be perfect. And then, as dusk deepens, the moment arrives. The keeper lights the lamp. Such a small action, really. The touch of flame to wick, but it marks the transition from day to night, from rest to vigilance. The lamp catches, steadies, burns bright. The keeper starts the clockwork mechanism, and the lens begins its rotation. The light begins its nightly dance, sweeping across the darkness. Every lighthouse has its own pattern, its own signature. Some lights rotate continuously. Some have a stationary period between flashes. Some are white light. Some show red or green sectors to indicate dangerous areas. Mariners know these patterns, study them, depend on them. A ship captain, far out at sea, counts the seconds between flashes and checks the chart. 20 seconds between flashes, white light. That's Cape Elizabeth. We're right where we should be. The relief in that moment. The confidence. All because of a keeper in a tower tending a lamp, maintaining a rhythm. Through the night, the keeper keeps watch, not necessarily staying awake every moment. By the mid-19th century, the improved lamps and lenses could run for several hours without attention, but checking regularly, every few hours, climbing the stairs again, making sure the clockwork hasn't stopped, the lamp hasn't dimmed, the rotation continues true. On calm nights, this is almost pleasant. The stars overhead, the peaceful sea, the steady turning of the light. On stormy nights, that's different. The tower shakes. Wind howls around the lantern room like something alive and angry. Rain drives against the glass so hard it sounds like gravel being thrown. Waves crash against the rocks or tower base, sending spray 100 feet in the air. But the light keeps turning, must keep turning. Ships out in that storm need it more than ever. So the keeper stays, watches, maintains, regardless of fear or exhaustion, or the primal desire to seek shelter somewhere deeper, safer. Let yourself rest in that dedication, that simple determination to keep the light burning. You don't need to imagine the drama of storms, just the quiet commitment, night after night, year after year. The Fresnel lens spreads across the world. By the 1860s, lighthouses from America to Australia, from Norway to New Zealand, are being equipped with these remarkable lenses. The coastlines grow safer. Fewer ships are lost. Fewer sailors drown in darkness. All because of improved glass and the keepers who maintain it. Some lighthouses become famous. The Minot's Ledge Light in Massachusetts, built on a submerged reef, where keepers sometimes couldn't leave the tower for weeks at a time when storms made boat access impossible. The Bell Rock Lighthouse in Scotland, built on a reef that's completely submerged at high tide. The Fresnel Rock Lighthouse off Ireland, called the Teardrop of Ireland because it was the last site of home for emigrants sailing to America. But most lighthouses aren't famous. Most are known only to the mariners who depend on them and the keepers who tend them. Small lights marking small harbors, river lights guiding vessels inland, range lights helping ships navigate narrow channels. Each one necessary. Each one maintained with the same care as the grandest coastal beacon. Women serve as lighthouse keepers too, more than you might expect for the 19th century. Often they're the widows of keepers, taking over the duty when their husbands die. The Lighthouse Service recognizes that these women already know the work, have been helping with it for years. Why train someone new when the keeper's widow is willing and able? Some become renowned for their skill and dedication. Ida Lewis, keeper of the Lime Rock Lighthouse in Rhode Island, rescued more than a dozen people during her time as keeper. Kate Walker kept the Robbins Reef Light for over 30 years. These women climbed the same stairs, cleaned the same glass, tended the same flames as their male counterparts. The light doesn't care about the gender of the keeper, only that the keeper is faithful. As the 19th century continues, as we move through the 1860s, 70s, 80s, the world is changing rapidly. Steamships begin to replace sailing vessels, railroads spread across continents, telegraph cables connect distant shores. The pace of life accelerates, but in the lighthouses, time moves as it always has. The sun rises and sets at its ancient pace. The tides follow the moon's pull, indifferent to human innovation. And the keepers maintain their watch, linking past to future through the eternal present of duty. Your breathing has slowed now, matching the rhythm of the turning light. Flash, darkness, flash, darkness. Regular as a heartbeat, reliable as the tide. Let that rhythm carry you deeper, into rest, into sleep. The light keeps turning, while you drift away. As we move deeper into the story of lighthouses, let's slow down even more. Let's spend time with the lived experience of lighthouse keeping, the reality of it, the texture of days and nights in these solitary towers. There are lighthouse keepers who serve for decades in the same light, 20 years, 30, 40. Imagine that. The same view from the same windows, day after day, for decades. Does it become unbearable? Or does it become something else? A deep knowing, an intimacy with a single place that few people ever achieve. Consider a keeper at a rock station, one of those lighthouses built on isolated rocks or reefs, accessible only by boat, and then only when the sea permits. The Fastnet, the Eddystone, the Bell Rock, Tillamook Rock off the Oregon coast, Graves Light in Boston Harbor. These are some of the most isolated places humans have ever chosen to inhabit. A keeper is rowed out to relieve another keeper. The boat approaches the tower, rising from the sea like something eternal and immovable. The keeper being relieved appears at the landing, helps secure the boat, exchanges a few words. Perhaps they talk about the weather that's coming. Perhaps they mention ships that passed. Perhaps they say very little. Men who have both kept lights understand each other without needing many words. The new keeper climbs up into the tower. The boat pushes off, rowing back to shore. And the keeper is alone, truly alone. The nearest human being might be miles away, across water that is sometimes impassable for weeks at a stretch. What does that feel like? The profound silence when the sea is calm. The equally profound roar when storms arrive. The knowledge that if something goes wrong, if you fall, if you become ill, if you're injured, there is no quick help coming. You must depend on yourself and hope that the sea allows a relief boat to reach you before some keepers loved this isolation, sought it out. These were often men who found ordinary society difficult, who felt confined by normal social expectations. Here, in a lighthouse, they could be themselves without judgment, read what they wanted, think what they wanted, live according to their own rhythms. Henry David Thoreau, though never a lighthouse keeper, would have understood. He wrote about Walden Pond, "I love to be alone. I never found the companion that was so companionable as solitude." Lighthouse keepers lived that truth to an extreme degree. Other keepers struggled with the isolation, went a bit strange, as the saying went. talked to themselves, saw things that weren't there. The mind, deprived of varied stimulation, sometimes creates its own. But mostly, keepers adapted. Humans are remarkably adaptable creatures. They created routines that gave structure to formless time. They found small pleasures. They endured. A keeper might wake each morning, and before anything else, step outside to check the weather. Not by looking at a device or screen, but by looking, feeling, smelling. The color of the sky, the feel of the wind, the smell of the air. Experienced keepers could smell weather changes coming. The appearance of the sea, its texture, its color, the character of the waves. This weather check isn't casual curiosity. It's professional necessity. If a storm is coming, preparations must be made. Supplies brought inside. Everything secured. The keeper knows that once the storm hits, going outside might be impossible, even dangerous. Then, breakfast. Simple food usually. Whatever can be stored for long periods or grown nearby. Oatmeal perhaps. Bread baked in the lighthouse kitchen. Tea or coffee. Keepers became skilled at making do with limited ingredients. After breakfast the work begins. Always, there is work. But let's not list the tasks again. You know them now. Cleaning, maintaining, painting, preparing. The work has its own rhythm, and the keeper moves through it with efficiency of long practice. But let's focus instead on the moments between tasks, the pauses, the times when the keeper stands at a window and simply looks. What does a lighthouse keeper see, looking out day after day? They see the sea in all its moods, glassy calm, like polished metal, gentle swells, rhythmic and soothing, choppy chop when wind opposes tide, massive storm waves, towering and terrifying, and every gradation between. They see weather systems approaching from miles away. A line of darkness on the horizon, slowly spreading, eventually arriving as rain or fog. They see fog itself, how it moves, how it thickens and thins, how it transforms the familiar into something strange and mysterious. They see ships, so many ships, every one a story. Where has it come from? Where is it going? What cargo does it carry? What dreams do the sailors aboard harbor? The keeper will never know. The ship passes, a temporary presence, and is gone. Some keepers kept notes about the ships they saw, built up detailed logs over years of observation. 3-masted bark, heading northeast, full sail, 2:30 p.m. These logs, discovered later, give us glimpses into the traffic of bygone eras. The commerce, the movement, the life of the sea. They see birds. Lighthouse keepers become, almost inadvertently, expert ornithologists. They see the seasonal migrations, the same species arriving at the same time each year with almost calendar precision. They see rare birds blown off course by store. Exhausted, sometimes landing on the lighthouse gallery to rest. Some keepers feed these birds, feel a kinship with these other creatures weathering the isolation. They see the light itself, in the beam sweeping out across the water at night. On foggy nights the beam becomes visible, a solid-seeming shaft of light cutting through the murk, beautiful and eerie. The keeper stands inside that light, part of it, the source of it, and also separate from it, watching it do its work. Let yourself imagine that now. Standing in the lantern room on a foggy night, the lens turning with its mechanical precision, the light sweeping out into nothing, swallowed by fog after only a few dozen yards, but still sweeping, still trying, still offering what help it can to anyone out there who needs it. The foghorn is another sound entirely. Many lighthouses have fog signals, horns or bells or sirens that sound during poor visibility. The pattern of the sound, like the pattern of the light, is unique to each station. Mariners learn them, depend on them, but imagine being the lighthouse keeper when the foghorn is operating. Some of these horns are extraordinarily loud, they have to be, to carry across water and through fog. The sound reverberates through the entire structure, makes conversation impossible, makes thought difficult. Hour after hour, day after day sometimes, while the fog persists. Some keepers stuffed cotton in their ears. Some learned to think in the spaces between blasts. Some said they eventually stopped hearing it consciously. It became like their own heartbeat, noticed only when it stopped. There are accounts of keepers who served together in the same tower, usually 2 or 3 men, rotating watches. These relationships could become incredibly close. The forced intimacy of isolation, or incredibly strained. You can't escape someone when you're living in a tower together, surrounded by sea. Good keeper partnerships develop their own rhythms, their own patterns of communication. They learned each other's habits, preferences, moods. They learned when to talk and when to leave each other alone. They became like brothers, like old married couples, comfortable in shared silence. Bad partnerships, those are painful to contemplate. Weeks trapped together with someone you've come to dislike, or worse. No escape, no privacy, every small annoyance magnified by repetition. Keepers have been known to divide the lighthouse between them, agreeing not to enter each other's designated areas except when duty required. Living parallel lives in the same small space. There were occasional tragedies, keepers who went mad, who attacked their companions, keepers who disappeared, walked into the sea perhaps, or fell from the rocks and were swept away, or who knows. The sea keeps its secrets, but mostly, remarkably, keepers endured. They kept the lights burning. They maintained their stations. They did their duty. Think about the word duty. It's become almost quaint, hasn't it? Old-fashioned. But for lighthouse keepers, duty was everything. It was the reason they were there. The justification for the isolation, the hardship, the sacrifice. They were saving lives. That knowledge sustained them through the darkest, longest, most difficult times. When the fog had lasted for a week and the horn had driven them half mad. When the storm had been raging for 3 days and they hadn't slept for fear the lamp would fail. When the loneliness felt like it might crack them open, they could remind themselves, ships depend on this light, lives depend on this light. I am doing something that matters. And they were. In the era before GPS, before radar, before radio direction finding, lighthouses were essential to safe navigation. The difference between a lighthouse burning and a lighthouse dark could be the difference between safe passage and disaster, between sailors returning home and families waiting forever for ships that would never arrive. As the 19th century moved into the 20th, technology continued to advance. Incandescent oil vapor lamps replaced the older wicks and flames, producing even more light from the same fuel. Acetylene gas was introduced in some lighthouses. Each innovation made the lights brighter, more reliable, more efficient, but the fundamental task remained unchanged. A keeper was still needed. Someone had to wind the clockwork, clean the lens, monitor the light, maintain the station. The technology helped. But it didn't replace the human element. Your mind is growing quieter now, perhaps. The details are less important than the feeling, the sense of these solitary figures, keeping watch through the centuries, the rhythm of their days and nights, year after year, decade after decade. There's something archetypal about the lighthouse keeper, the solitary guardian, the light in darkness, the faithful servant of something larger than themselves. It touches something deep in the human psyche, doesn't it? The idea that someone is watching, someone is maintaining the light, someone is there in the darkness to guide us home. You can let that image comfort you as you drift toward sleep. Somewhere, even now, there are lights burning, automated now, mostly, but still burning, still turning, still sending their beams out across the darkness. And once, not so long ago in the grand sweep of history, there were keepers in those towers, real people, with hopes and fears and dreams. People who chose, for whatever reason, to spend their lives in isolation, tending light. They're mostly gone now, those keepers. The last generation retired in the late 20th century as automation took over. But their dedication echoes across the years. Their faithfulness to duty, their patient endurance. Rest in that knowledge, rest in the thought of all those lights, burning through all those nights, tended by all those faithful hands. The light keeps turning, the beam keeps sweeping, and you can lie, drift. As we move into the 20th century, time seems to accelerate, though we'll resist that acceleration here in this quiet space. We'll maintain our gentle pace, even as the world outside rushes faster and faster. The early 1900s brought electricity to lighthouses, not all at once. Nothing ever happens all at once, despite how it might seem in history books. Lighthouse by lighthouse, year by year, electric power replaced oil lamps. Imagine being a keeper when electricity arrived at your station. For your entire career, perhaps for generations of keepers before you, the work centered around oil, measuring it, hauling it, burning it, cleaning up after it. And now, a switch, a flip of a switch, and light blazes forth. Brighter than oil ever achieved, steady, clean, almost magical, but also less needed. An electric light requires less tending. The keeper's role begins to shift from actively maintaining the light source to monitoring the electrical system, replacing bulbs, serving as a backup in case the power fails. The change is gradual. At first, keepers remain essential. Electrical systems in the early 20th century are unreliable. Storms knock out power regularly, equipment fails. The keeper must be there, ready to switch to backup systems, ready to troubleshoot, ready to ensure that no matter what happens, the light continues. And there are still all the other duties. The lens still needs cleaning, the building still needs maintenance. The station still requires human presence, but slowly, imperceptibly at first, then increasingly obviously, the keeper is becoming less central to the lighthouse's function. The light can operate for longer periods without human intervention. Days. Eventually, weeks. World War I brings changes. Many lighthouses are extinguished for security reasons. No sense helping enemy submarines navigate. Keepers find themselves reassigned or serving in the military. When the war ends and lights are relit, some keepers don't return. The stations manage with smaller crews. The period between the wars is perhaps the last golden age of traditional lighthouse keeping. Electric lights, yes, and some automation, but still requiring human presence. Still isolated stations where keepers live and work, sometimes with families, maintaining the old traditions even as the world modernizes around them. A keeper in the 1920s or 1930s experiences a strange duality. The lighthouse itself is ancient technology, essentially unchanged in its fundamental purpose since before recorded history. Light to guide. But increasingly, the keeper has access to modern conveniences that would have amazed earlier generations. Some lighthouses get radio systems. The keeper can communicate with shore, report weather, call for help if needed. This is both a blessing, the terrible isolation is broken, and a loss. Something changes when you can reach out across the distance so easily. The profound self-reliance required. By total isolation, it's no longer quite so necessary. Some keepers get telephones once phone lines can be run to coastal stations. Family members can call. The lighthouse becomes less of an exile and more of a remote workplace. Still isolated, still demanding, but connected to the world in ways earlier keepers never experienced. World War II brings another interruption. Again, lights are extinguished or modified. Many are equipped with radar and used as observation posts. Keepers become part of the coastal defense network, watching not just for ships in distress, but for enemy vessels or aircraft. After the war, the march toward automation accelerates. Electronics improve. Automated systems become more reliable. The question is no longer can we automate lighthouses, but when should we automate lighthouses? The economics are clear. A lighthouse keeper costs money, salary, supplies, transportation, housing. An automated light, once installed, operates at a fraction of the cost. And modern ships have increasingly sophisticated navigation equipment. They're less dependent on lighthouses than ever before. But there's resistance, not just from keepers who might lose their jobs, but from mariners who value the human presence. A keeper can make judgments, respond to unusual situations, use radio to warn ships of hazards. A keeper is a backup, a safety margin, a human element in an increasingly automated world. The debate plays out differently in different countries. Some ions automate quickly. Others maintain keepers longer. But the trend is clear and inevitable. Let's spend time with a keeper in the 1960s or 1970s. By this point, they know the end is coming. Automation is spreading. Fellow keepers are being reassigned. Stations are being shut down or converted to automatic operation. How does that feel? You've spent your career, perhaps your entire adult life, doing this work. You're good at it. You find meaning in it. And you're told that you're obsolete, that a machine can do your job better, or at least more cheaply. Some keepers are bitter. Some are relieved. The isolation was never easy. and the prospect of a normal life, living in a town, seeing family regularly, is welcome. Some are simply sad. The end of an era. The closing of a chapter. There are keepers who fight to stay, who volunteer to remain even as automation proceeds. Keep me on, they say. I'll work for less. I'll take on additional duties. Just let me stay. Because for some people, the lighthouse isn't just a job. It's an identity. It's a calling. The last manned lighthouses vary by country. In the United States, the last civilian keeper retired in 1990. In Britain, the last keepers were withdrawn in 1998. In Canada, 2011. Each country's last keeper marking the end of centuries of tradition. There are ceremonies for some of these endings. The last keeper extinguishes the lamp one final time in the traditional way, before the automated system takes over. Photographers AR. E-present. Journalists. It's recognized as significant, even by people who never gave lighthouses much thought. And then, silence. The lighthouse continues to function. The light turns, flashes its pattern, guides ships. But there's no one home. The keeper's quarters stand empty. The spiral stairs echo with no footsteps. The lantern room gleams untouched by human hands except for occasional maintenance visits. Is it sad, or is it progress? Perhaps both. Perhaps the question itself is too simple. Modern automated lighthouses are remarkably reliable. Solar panels and batteries provide power. LED lights last for years without replacement. Sensors monitor the system and alert authorities if something fails. Ships that pass in the night are guided safely with no human intervention required. But something is lost. The knowledge that someone is there keeping watch feels different than knowing a machine is operating. There's a psychological element to it, perhaps irrational but nonetheless real. And the keepers themselves, where did they go? They took their knowledge with them. The deep embodied understanding of weather and sea and light. The patience and dedication and stubborn endurance that the job required. Some wrote memoirs. These are precious now. These accounts of what it was like. The daily routine, the isolation, the beauty and terror and profound peace of lighthouse life. Reading them, we can glimpse a world that's gone. You might be feeling very drowsy now. The narrative is winding down, as all things wind down eventually. The story of manned lighthouses has reached its conclusion, even though the lighthouses themselves persist. As you drift deeper into sleep, you can hold the image of a lighthouse in your mind. Not manned now, perhaps, but still serving its function, still turning its light through the darkness, still standing watch over dangerous waters. The technology has changed. The keepers are gone, but the purpose remains. Light against darkness, guidance against chaos, hope against the indifferent sea. Some things are eternal, even when the forms they take evolve. The need for light, the need for guidance, the need for something steady and reliable in an uncertain world. The lighthouse continues. And you can rest now, knowing that somewhere lights are burning, turning, guiding, while you drift into sleep. We're near the end now. This final section will explore what remains, what's been preserved, what the lighthouse means today, in our modern world of GPS and radar and satellite navigation. Lighthouses still exist. Hundreds of them. Thousands around the world. Most are automated, as we've discussed. But they remain, these towers and buildings. These structures created for a specific purpose that's now largely obsolete. So what do we do with them? Some have been demolished. This happens, though less often than you might expect. When a lighthouse is no longer needed, when it's in the way of development or too expensive to maintain, it might be torn down. Each demolition is a small tragedy, at least for those who care about such things. A link to the past severed, but most remain. And increasingly there's an understanding that these structures have value beyond their original function. Historical value, architectural value, cultural value. Around the world, lighthouse preservation societies have formed. Dedicated people, often volunteers, work to save and maintain these buildings. They raise money, perform restoration work, open lighthouses to the public. They fight against decay and neglect, and the forces that would erase the past. Some lighthouses have become museums. You can visit them, climb the stairs that keepers climbed, stand in the lantern room, and look out at the same view that held their attention for so many years. The Fresnel lenses gleam, preserved and polished. Interpretive displays explain the history, the technology, the daily life of keepers. These museums serve an important function. They connect us to the past. They let us experience, in a small way, what lighthouse life was like. They preserve the knowledge and the stories. Other lighthouses have been converted to other uses. Some are private homes. Imagine living in a lighthouse, waking each day in a tower, surrounded by sea and sky. Some are vacation rentals, offering city dwellers a taste of isolation and simplicity. Some house research stations or art installations or retreat centers. Each use is a kind of preservation, a way of keeping the building alive and maintained, even if its original purpose is gone. And some lighthouses wonderfully still serve their original function. Automated, yes, but still operational. Still sending light across the darkness. Still marked on navigation charts. Still relevant to mariners, even if less essential than before. There's something deeply satisfying about that continuity. A lighthouse built in 1850 or 1900 or 1920, still doing what it was designed to do, still serving travelers even in an age when those travelers have multiple other ways to determine their position. Let's visit a lighthouse together, you and I, in your imagination. One that's been preserved, restored, open to the public. We'll take our time. There's no rush. We approach by car perhaps or on foot. The lighthouse rises before us, white against blue sky or gray against storm clouds. It's been freshly painted. Volunteers come regularly to maintain it. The tower looks much as it did a century ago, 2 centuries ago. We enter at the base. Inside it's cool and quiet. The walls are thick, they need to be, to withstand wind and weather. Our footsteps echo slightly. There's a distinctive smell, old stone, paint, the faint tang of sea air that permeates everything. We begin to climb. The stairs wind upward in a spiral following the inner wall. Climb slowly. Feel each step. Notice how the stone is worn in places, smoothed by generations of footsteps. The keepers who climb these stairs daily left their mark, quite literally, wearing away the stone through sheer repetition. Count the steps if you like. Some lighthouses have over 100. Take your time, rest if you need to. The keepers climb these multiple times daily, carrying supplies, never complaining. We can take our time. Light filters down from above. As we climb, we pass small windows. Pause at one. Look out. See how the perspective changes as we rise. At ground level, the view is limited. Higher up, the world expands. We can see further, understand more. This is one reason lighthouses are tall. Height gives range. The higher the light, the further it can be seen. Simple geometry, but it required considerable engineering to realize. We continue climbing. The stairs go on, winding. Your legs might tire. That's all right. Imagine doing this multiple times a day, every day, for years. The keepers were fit, necessarily. The job demanded it. Finally, we emerge into the lantern room. Step out into that space of glass and light. The Fresnel lens dominates. Even in daytime, even dormant, it's impressive. All that glass, all those prisms carefully arranged, beautiful and functional. Walk around the lens, see how it catches sunlight, fractures it into rainbows. Imagine it at night, with the lamp burning inside, the light magnified and focused, beaming out across the water. Look out the windows. See what the keeper saw. The sweep of coastline, the expanse of ocean, the meeting of earth and water and sky. Depending on the lighthouse, you might see ships passing, or nothing but sea, empty and vast. Feel the wind. Even through closed windows you can sense it, the way it presses against the tower. On stormy days, the entire structure would sway slightly. Not much. These buildings are engineered for stability, but enough to feel, enough to remind the keeper of nature's power. There might be a gallery outside, a narrow walkway around the exterior of the lantern room. If you're not afraid of heights, step out. Feel the wind fully now. Hear the cry of gulls. Look down at the waves breaking against rocks, or the harbor spread below, or whatever this particular lighthouse overlooks. This is the keeper's perspective. This is what they experienced, day after day, the immensity of it, the beauty, the power, the indifference of nature to human concerns. Now back inside. Notice the details. The brass fixtures, polished by volunteers as they once were polished by keepers. The logbook perhaps displayed in a case, pages filled with careful notations in faded ink, weather observations, ships sighted, oil consumed, the bureaucratic poetry of daily duty. There might be photographs on the walls, keepers and their families, earlier views of the lighthouse, ships that passed, lives documented in black and white, frozen in time, preserved. As we descend, carefully, stairs are more dangerous, going down than up. We can reflect on what we've experienced. A glimpse to another way of life. A connection to the past. A moment of presence in a place built for a purpose that endures even as the methods change. Back at ground level, we step outside again. Look up at the tower. It remains, solid and enduring. It will likely stand long after we're gone, as it stood before we were born. There's comfort in that permanence, in that continuity. Around the world, millions of people visit lighthouses each year. They come for different reasons. Some are interested in history or architecture. Some are mariners with professional interest. Some are artists, drawn by the dramatic scenery and lighting. Some just want to climb the tower, test themselves against the stairs, enjoy the view. But I think many come seeking something less tangible, a sense of connection to something authentic and enduring, a break from the rapid, complex, digital, modern world, a few moments in a place where time seems slower, purpose seems clearer, life seems simpler. Lighthouses offer that. They're places of clarity. Their function is unambiguous. Their beauty is straightforward. Their message is simple. There is light in darkness, guidance in confusion, safety if you follow the beam. That message resonates, even now. Maybe especially now, in our complicated, uncertain times. The lighthouse reminds us that humans can build things that last, that serve, that help. The keeper is gone, but the keeper's spirit remains. The dedication, the faithfulness, the quiet perseverance in the face of isolation and difficulty. These are qualities we still need, still value, even in our automated age. As this narrative draws to a close, as you sink deeper into rest, hold this image, a lighthouse standing against the dusk, the automated light beginning its nightly rotation, sending beams across the darkening water. No keeper is present, but the purpose endures. The light still turns, the guidance still offers. And somewhere perhaps the ghost of a keeper pauses on the stairs satisfied. The light is burning, the duty is fulfilled. All is well. You can rest now, the lighthouse keeps watch, the light keeps turning. And you can simply let go, drift, sleep. All those keepers, through all those years, keeping watch so others could rest. Their vigilance allowing safe passage, safe harbor, safe return. Now it's your turn to rest. Let the light continue its ancient duty. Let the beam sweep across the darkness. Let the tower stand watch. You are safe. You are guided. You can sleep. The lighthouse remains. The light keeps turning. And you drift away into peaceful, restful sleep. Let's return for a while to the keeper's experience. We've touched on it, but let's settle into it more deeply. Let's feel the rhythm of days and seasons in a lighthouse, the way time moves when you're anchored to one place, watching the world change around you while you remain constant. Dawn arrives differently depending on the season. In summer it comes early, creeping into the sky while the world is still cool and quiet. The keeper, who has been awake through the night or who rose in the dark hours before sunrise, watches the transformation. The stars fade. The sky shifts from black to deep blue to pale blue to pink to gold. The sea, which was invisible in darkness, gradually reveals itself again. In winter, dawn comes late. The keeper has been awake for hours in the cold darkness, tending the light, keeping warm however possible. Many lighthouses were poorly heated. Fuel was expensive, and comfort was secondary to function. The keeper might wear multiple layers, move frequently to generate warmth, drink hot tea or coffee to warm from within. But regardless of season, dawn brings the same task. Extinguish the light. The night's work is done. The beam that has been sweeping across the darkness for hours must now be stopped, the lamp put out, the lens allowed to rest. There's a ritual to it. The keeper doesn't simply blow out a candle. There are procedures. The lamp must be turned off properly to avoid damage, the fuel supply closed, the clockwork mechanism stopped at the right moment. Everything done in order, the way it's always been done, the way it will be done again tomorrow and the day after and the day after that. Then, the cleaning begins. We've discussed this before, but let's feel it more deeply. The keeper takes soft cloths, cleaning solution, begins the slow work of polishing each prism of the Fresnel lens. This takes hours. Aerial hours. The keeper's arms grow tired from reaching, from the repetitive circular motions, but the work must be done. Any smudge, any spot, any accumulation of salt or dust diminishes the light's effectiveness. There's a meditation in this work. The mind wanders while the hands stay busy. The keeper might think about family far away, if they have family. Might remember their life before the lighthouse, if there was such a life. Might think about nothing at all, simply existing in the present moment, cloth moving across glass, again and again and again. When the lens is clean, there are the windows. The lantern room has windows all around. It must for the light to shine out in all directions. Each window accumulates salt spray, especially after storms. Each must be cleaned, inside and out. Reaching the outside requires going onto the gallery, that narrow walkway around the exterior. On calm days, this is pleasant. On windy days, it's frightening. The keeper must hold tight to the railing, lean out carefully, clean what can be reached, except that some spots will have to wait for better weather. The brass must be polished too. All the metal fixtures, the framework, the lamp housing. Brass tarnishes quickly in salt air. The keeper polishes it not just for appearance, though pride matters and a well-maintained light reflects well on its keeper, but because corrosion is the enemy. Tarnish becomes pitting, becomes holes, becomes failure. Constant maintenance prevents disaster. By midday, if the keeper is efficient and the work goes smoothly, the lantern room gleams. Clean glass, polished brass, everything in order. The keeper can descend the stairs, those endless stairs, and attend to other duties. There's always painting to be done. We've mentioned this, but let's understand it more fully. A lighthouse in service requires constant paint. The salt air attacks everything. Paint blisters and peels, wood rots if not protected, metal rusts. The keeper must inspect constantly. Scrape away failing paint, apply fresh coats. This work is seasonal. You can't paint in winter, not in northern climates. The paint won't dry properly in cold and damp, so the keeper waits for spring, for settled weather, for days when the temperature is right and rain isn't threatening. And then the painting begins, a project that might take weeks, one section at a time. The tower, the outbuildings, the railings, the doors. Everything that needs protection. Some keepers developed real skill at this work. They took pride in clean, straight lines, in coverage with no drips or runs, in choosing the moment when weather would cooperate. Others simply did what was necessary, fulfilling the requirement without artistry. Both approaches worked. Both kept the lighthouse maintained. There are repairs, always repairs. A roof leak, a broken window, a door that won't close properly, a crack in the cistern. The keeper must be somewhat of a handyman, able to diagnose problems and fix them with whatever materials and tools are available. Help might be months away. The keeper must be self-sufficient. And there are the supplies. Food must be managed carefully, especially at isolated stations. The keeper learns to preserve food, to make things last, to plan ahead. Root vegetables keep well. Dried beans and rice are staples, salted meat or fish. Tinned goods if available and affordable. Fresh food is a luxury, enjoyed when supply boats arrive, or when the keeper can fish or forage. Some keepers kept gardens if the location permitted. A small plot of soil, sheltered from wind if possible, where they could grow vegetables, potatoes, carrots, cabbage, onions. Tending the garden becomes another rhythm in the day, another task that marks time. Planting in spring, weeding through summer, harvesting in fall, the garden connects the keeper to the earth, provides variation to a monotonous diet, gives purpose beyond the light itself. Water is precious at many lighthouses. If there's no natural spring, water must be collected from rain, stored in cisterns, used sparingly. The keeper becomes conscious of every drop. Washing is minimal, drinking and cooking take priority, In drought, water might have to be brought from shore, added to all the other supplies that must be transported. The afternoon passes. The keeper might have a few hours to rest, to read if they have books, to write letters home if they're literate, and have someone to write to. Some keepers were scholarly types, reading extensively, educating themselves in isolation. Others were simpler men, content with less intellectual stimulation. Some carved or built things, models of ships, furniture, decorative items. The long hours needed to be filled somehow. Some walked, exploring every inch of their small domain repeatedly, knowing every rock and tide pool intimately. Some simply sat and watched the sea, the sky, the birds, finding entertainment in nature's constant variation. As afternoon fades toward evening, the keeper's attention sharpens again. Time to prepare for the night's lighting. The lamp is checked once more. Everything confirmed ready. The keeper might eat a simple supper, might make fresh coffee or tea to sustain them through the night. And then, as dusk deepens, the moment arrives. The keeper climbs the stairs once more. How many times a day? 5? 10? The keeper stops counting, stops thinking about it. The stairs are simply there, must simply be climbed, part of the eternal routine. In the lantern room, the keeper lights the lamp. The flame catches, steadies, grows bright. The clockwork is started, and the lens begins its rotation. Another night's watch has begun. If this is a manned station where keepers work in shifts, the night keeper settles in for their watch. If the keeper is alone, they might doze in the watchroom below the lantern, waking periodically to check that all is well. But they cannot truly sleep, not deeply. The responsibility weighs. What if something goes wrong? What if the light fails and ships depend on it? Through the night, the keeper keeps vigil, sometimes reading by lamplight, sometimes simply sitting in darkness, watching the light turn, watching the beams sweep out across the water, sometimes stepping outside onto the gallery to feel the night air, to look up at the stars, to exist for a moment in the vast quiet of sea and sky. The seasons turn. Summer fades to autumn, the storms grow stronger, more frequent. The keeper battens down, prepares for the difficult months ahead. Winter in a lighthouse is a test of endurance. Short days, long nights, bitter cold, fierce storms. The keeper must maintain the light through it all, must keep the beacon burning even when snow blankets everything, even when ice coats the tower, even when wind screams around the lantern room like something alive. Spring comes eventually, always. The storms moderate, days lengthen, life returns to the shore, migrating birds, new growth if there's vegetation. The keeper emerges from winter's grip, begins the cycle again. Painting, planting if there's a garden, making repairs that had to wait for better weather. Year follows year. The keeper ages in place. Hair grays. Joints stiffen from the endless stair climbing, from the damp and cold. But the routine continues. The light must be tended. The duty remains. Some keepers serve their entire adult lives in lighthouses. 20 years, 30, 40. They retire or die in service. And another keep takes their place. The light continues, indifferent to who tends it, caring only that someone does. And through it all the rhythm persists, day and night, summer and winter, calm and storm, the endless, reliable, soothing rhythm of duty and purpose and light. Let that rhythm carry you now, deeper into rest, into sleep. The keeper keeps watch, so you don't have to. The light keeps turning, while you drift, away. Most of a lighthouse keeper's life was routine as we've explored, but not all of it. There were moments, hours, sometimes days, when the routine shattered, when the keeper faced extraordinary circumstances that tested everything they were. Let's talk about storms, real storms, not the moderate weather that keepers handled routinely, but the great storms, the ones that arrive perhaps once a decade, once in a lifetime. The ones that remind humans how small we are, how fragile our structures, how easily nature could sweep us away if it chose. A great storm builds slowly, usually. The keeper sees it coming. The sky changes, taking on a peculiar color, greenish or copper, or simply dark in a way that speaks of violence to come. The barometer drops, the needle falling steadily, relentlessly. The wind picks up, coming in gusts at first, then blowing harder, harder, constant now. The sea changes, the swells build, the waves grow larger, more powerful. Their character shifts from rolling to aggressive, as if the ocean itself is angry. Spray begins to fly. From the wave tops, the sound changes too. What was a gentle rhythmic wash becomes a roar. The keeper prepares. Everything movable must be brought inside or secured. The supply boat has already left, won't return until after the storm passes. The keeper is committed now. Whatever happens, they must face it here, in this tower, alone or with other keepers if it's a multiple keeper station. All hatches are secured, every window checked. The keeper makes sure there's food and fresh water inside the tower itself, in case the outbuildings become inaccessible. Fuel for the lamp is brought up, extra more than usual, in case the storm lasts longer than expected. And then, waiting, watching the storm approach, the wind rising, the rain beginning, light at first, then heavier, then driving horizontal, so hard it's impossible to see more than a few feet through it. The waves growing enormous, towering, crashing against the rocks or the tower itself with shuddering impact. The noise is beyond description. The wind doesn't howl, that word is too gentle. It screams, it thunders. It sounds like a freight train, like an avalanche, like the world ending. The waves boom against the structure, each impact a physical blow that shakes the entire lighthouse. The keeper can feel it in their bones, in their teeth. In the lantern room, the keeper fights to keep the light burning. The wind is so powerful that it affects the rotation of the lens. The clockwork struggles. The keeper must constantal. Why adjust, compensate, ensure that the beam keeps turning, keeps sweeping out into that maelstrom of rain and spray and darkness. Water finds its way in despite all precautions. Through tiny gaps, through places the keeper didn't know existed. The lantern room becomes wet. The keeper works continuously, wiping down the lens, cleaning the glass, because the salt spray accumulates instantly, constantly, threatening to dim the light just when it's needed most. Ships are out there, in that darkness and chaos. The keeper knows this. Ships that need the light desperately. Ships fighting for survival, trying to stay off the rocks, trying to make it to safe harbor. The keeper's duty is to them. No matter how frightening the storm, no matter how tired the keeper becomes, the light must keep burning. Hours pass. The storm doesn't weaken. If anything, it intensifies. The tower sways, actually sways, with the force of the wind and waves. This is normal, the keeper knows. The engineers designed for this. The structure is meant to flex, to yield slightly rather than break. But knowing this intellectually doesn't stop the primal fear when you feel the solid tower moving beneath your feet. Some storms last for days. The keeper cannot truly sleep, can only doze fitfully between checks of the light. Food becomes unimportant, impossible to eat anyway when everything is moving, when adrenaline and fear suppress appetite. The keeper drinks water, drinks coffee if they can heat any, and continue. The vigil. And then finally the storm begins to break. The wind drops. The rain eases. The waves, while still large, lose their murderous character. Dawn comes, revealing a changed world. Debris everywhere, sometimes wreckage, pieces of ships, cargo washed ashore, occasionally bodies, though the keeper tries not to think about that. The keeper can finally rest, descend the stairs on shaking legs, collapse into sleep, the deep, dreamless sleep of utter exhaustion. When they wake, hours later, there's damage to assess, repairs to begin, the normal routine to resume. But they survived. The light stayed burning. Ships were saved, even if the keeper never knows which ones, never receives thanks. Not all dramas involve storms. Sometimes they involve rescues. Lighthouse keepers, by virtue of being positioned at dangerous points along the coast, sometimes witnessed shipwrecks, saw ships driven onto rocks, saw crews in desperate peril. And some keepers, not all, not even most, but some, risked their lives to save strangers. Ida Lewis, keeper of Lime Rock Light in Rhode Island, performed her first rescue at age 16 and continued saving lives throughout her career. More than a dozen documented rescues, probably more that went unrecorded. She would row out in her small boat, in storms, in darkness, in conditions where most people wouldn't venture onto land, let alone water, and pull drowning sailors from the sea. This wasn't her job. Her job was to keep the light burning. But She did it anyway, again and again. She became famous for it, received medals, was celebrated in newspapers. But she remained humble, matter-of-fact. "I don't think about the danger," she said once. "I think about the people who need help." Other keepers did the same, though most remained anonymous. Their rescues noted in logbooks, perhaps mentioned in official reports, but not celebrated publicly. They saw someone in danger and acted, because that's what you do when you have the skills and the opportunity and another human being is drowning in front of you. The rescues themselves were often desperate affairs, rowing out in a small boat toward a sinking ship, timing the waves, trying to get close enough to take on survivors without being smashed against the wreck, hauling exhausted, hypothermic sailors aboard, getting them back to the lighthouse, warming them, saving them from death. Sometimes the keeper couldn't save everyone. Sometimes they arrived too late, or the conditions were simply impossible, or there were too many people and not enough room in the boat. These failures haunted some keepers for the rest of their lives. They had done everything possible, and it still wasn't enough. There were other extraordinary moments, ships signaling for help, not in distress, but needing a pilot, or information about tides, or verification of position. The keeper would use signal flags or lights to communicate, providing what assistance they could. Occasionally there were births in lighthouses, keepers' wives going into labor with no doctor available, no help except the keeper, and perhaps other family members. Children born in lighthouse bedrooms, their first sight the lantern room above, their first sounds the wind and waves that would be the constant soundtrack of their childhood. And there were deaths, keepers who fell ill with no way to get medical help in time, family members who died, and the keeper had to keep the light burning even in grief, had to continue the duty even when they wanted to break down, to rage, to abandon their post. There were visiting dignitaries sometimes, lighthouse inspectors certainly, but also politicians, artists, writers, people curious about lighthouse life, wanting to see it firsthand. The keeper would show them around, demonstrate the lens, explain the routine. Some visitors were impressed, others couldn't wait to leave, couldn't understand why anyone would choose this isolated existence. There were long periods of absolute monotony punctuated by moments of intense drama or emotion. That was the pattern. Weeks of routine, then a storm. Months of solitude, then a rescue. Years of quiet duty, then something extraordinary. And through it all, the keeper persevered. Showed up day after day. Climbed the stairs again and again. Cleaned the lens, tended the lamp, kept the watch. The extraordinary moments are what get remembered, what get recorded in history. But the routine was what defined the keeper's life. You're very relaxed now, perhaps. The stories washing over you, some details sticking, others flowing past. That's perfect. You don't need to remember all of this. You don't need to remember any of this. Just let it carry you deeper into rest. The storms pass. The rescues are completed. The extraordinary moments fade back into routine. And the routine continues, steady and reliable, day after day, night after night. The keeper keeps watch. The light keeps burning. And you can simply drift, let go, sleep. All is well. The watch is maintained. You are safe. You can rest, deeper now, into sleep, peaceful, complete sleep.